Believe it or not, Eternals, the second of the Hindenburg projects, was my most anticipated movie of 2021. With an all-star cast, a Best Picture winning director, and a really interesting new aesthetic for the MCU, I was convinced that Marvel wouldn't go so hard to release a movie based on D-list comic characters if they didn't have something truly special brewing. As we all know now, I was wrong. Usually when I hear critics say the movie didn't have enough time to do what it wanted, it feels like a cop-out. But here, it really is the problem. There are so many characters, and you can see where they're trying to go with a lot of them, but it just doesn't land because we don't get enough time to care. Let's start with Ikaris, because a few other characters require I talk about him first. On paper, his arc is fine. He's one of the only ones who doesn't suffer from the time problem. It's clear from start to finish in the directing, writing, and acting that Ikaris is a complete and total psychopath. His mission to serve Arishem is all he cares about, except for one thing, his love for Sersi, who he ends up choosing over Arishem, which is why he kills himself at the end of the film. I've already talked about how much I love when Marvel makes characters balance their beliefs versus their love for another character. The problem is that he is played as such an unstable creep that I never believe that he actually loves Sersi. He follows her around, staring at her like a piece of meat, treating her almost like Homelander did with Maeve in the beginning of The Boys, without the outward violence, which again would be fine if the movie didn't try to treat their relationship as real love. He never shows any interest in her as a person, never relates to her at all, except in one moment where he admits that he's going to learn more about humans just to get closer to her, but even then, the delivery and context make that seem more robotic and creepy than genuine. The main thing he says over and over again is that
you are very beautiful, Sersi.
Which is not a compelling reason to fall in love with someone, especially on screen. Richard Madden plays a pretty good diet Homelander. Ikaris is cold and scary to watch, but if that's all you're going to make him, then you can't have the entire plot revolve around 3 characters being totally in love with him. Why do other characters see him as a leader? What makes them attracted to him? Why are we the only ones who can tell this guy is a sociopath? And if his love for Sersi is not supposed to be predatory but genuine, then you've got to show us that. We never get to see him like they do, and so in the end, when he gives up his life mission for love, we're left not really caring. Sersi is a little nerd who loves humans. She works at a museum, has a human boyfriend, uses an iPhone, and is chosen by Ajak because she knows that Sersi will fight to protect humans more than anyone else. 2 problems though. 1, she doesn't really have much personality. She speaks to the Darwin statue in the beginning, which is very charming, but that honestly might have been her best moment in the movie. You tell us she's a nerd and that she loves humans, but they don't spend enough time making that specific, and so her character is often just kind of there. This, I recognize, is a time problem. The bigger, more serious problem that is not related to time is Ikaris. As I've just laid out, the man is a sociopath. Why does this smart, gentle, caring person fall in love with him? It makes Sersi look so pathetic. And don't say nice girls like bad boys or try to justify it with some of your headcanon. If the movie had actually made the point that Sersi's one weakness is a bad boy, that would have been a great way to give her a bit more personality. But they don't. You can make up all the reasons you want, but the fact remains that this movie never explains once why this woman would ever love this creep. If you haven't rewatched their romance scenes, I recommend you do, because they are so weird. Sprite's character arc is really great, you guessed it, on paper. I love the idea of exploring what thousands of years of living physically as a child does to someone. It's like a fairy tale curse, and it's a genuinely moving premise. The problem though is threefold. First, as you probably expect me to say, it is so lame that she likes Ikaris. He sucks, and like with Sersi, you can invent a million reasons why she might, but the movie never cares to. Secondly, as you also probably expect me to say, the movie doesn't get enough time with her great premise to actually do anything interesting with it. There's a great moment in the bar early in the movie where you can see her using her powers to talk to a young man, only for him to realize it's an illusion. And this is good character work. She knows that it could never lead anywhere because the second it did, he would see through it, but she does it anyway because pretending for a few minutes hurts less. If the movie did more of this, Sprite would be awesome. But instead, we get a few other points where characters tell us that Sprite loves Ikaris, and suddenly she's choosing his side to destroy the world. Again, if you want us to believe that Sprite is in so much pain that she's ready to kill everyone for a fresh start, then you have to show us that. I mean, she must have been in a really dark place. This movie could have gotten some great moments if they had given us more of a glimpse of what that despair looks like. Lastly, Sersi having some celestial power left over and using it to make Sprite human is unbelievably silly. I guess you could round out her arc by making her human, but do you have to Deus Ex Machina that? We couldn't have set it up earlier? And if you want us to care, we have to buy into this moment of catharsis, which we don't really, because again, we never get to see the depths of her pain and what she's going through. Thena is a warrior through and through. She lives to fight, and it's all she cares about, which is pretty interesting as an initial setup. This leads to some great moments, like where she tells Sersi to get up off the floor, and her best line in the film,
"You've never had to fight me.
but I've always wanted to.
But the Mad Weary plotline about her randomly losing her mind because she's got some software error that causes her to get caught up in her past life is so stupid. It takes up so much time in this film, and she overcomes it not by learning anything or changing in any way, but basically by deciding not to have the problem anymore. It almost feels like they were trying to say something about mental health with Thena, which could have been cool, but if they were, I don't know what kind of message they're trying to send with that one. The much more interesting thread that this movie never has time for is her quest for revenge against the deviant that killed Gilgamesh. By the end of the movie, it's so unbelievably clear that the Eternals and Deviants should be working together that Thena just cutting him into pieces is ridiculous. Her arc should have been about realizing that she and the Deviant are the same, and that this cycle of revenge is distracting them from their true shared enemy, the Celestials. The fact that this revelation of peace would come to the most bloodthirsty Eternal while she's out for revenge would have been a great way to round out her story. Also, I'm pissed that we don't get more action sequences with her that don't involve her being weird and brainwashed. Hello, I grew up watching Angelina Jolie kick ass and look cool while doing it. The least the MCU could do is give us more of that. I like Ajak. She's a lover, not a fighter, and the movie does a great job of showing this in the few scenes that she's in. Her best moment is when she finds out Ikaris is about to murder her, and all she does is hug him and apologize for allowing him to be led down this path. That's powerful stuff, and it's represented by her power set, which is basically just healing. But she's not a physical healer, but a spiritual one. She's like the group therapist, and it sucks that we only get to see small glimpses of this. If Sprite's arc got more time to breathe, for example, it would have been great to see how Ajak helped her through dark times, but instead it's only vaguely referenced at. It's clear to the characters in this movie how significant Ajak's death is, but because they don't have time to show how much she does for them, it only really matters to us because the movie tells us it does. Druig is probably the most interesting Eternal. He's initially the only one questioning their blind loyalty to Arishim and Ajak's decision to allow humans to slaughter each other. And it's such a creepy, fun choice that his prescription for fixing this is mass brainwashing. He's got the makings of a really cool anti-hero, or even villain. His fondness for uncomfortable truth is one of the few character through lines in this movie, as he's also the only one willing to speak out loud the facts that revenge won't bring peace for Thena, and that the Deviants are no different from them. Which, by the way, is all the more offensive because he is clearly right, and yet these things still never get explored, but I digress. I also liked how he was willing to use humans as living weapons when fighting the Deviants, but I think they totally missed an opportunity here. I get that he's been in solitude for hundreds of years, but he clearly has access to YouTube at least. Instead of having them create an antiquated firing line, he should have a coordinated force of bodies, all attacking under one mind. Imagine if Druig fighting with his villagers looked more like the Avengers, coordinating in their fight against Thanos on Titan. Unfortunately, the movie doesn't really have time to do anything with this really interesting character they've built. He has a great rivalry with Ikaris that never gets resolved, and an intriguing romance with Makkari that never gets explored. Nor do we find out why they never looked for each other for 500 years. He has an interesting outlook about how he would have brainwashed the world but accepted that flaws are what makes humans human, but this is only mentioned briefly, so without any specifics, it comes across as cliche and also inexplicably conflicts with most of his actions in the film. If they had more time, it would have been great to watch him reckon with his belief that they shouldn't be pawns to some all-powerful god, while recognizing that that's exactly what he does to others. But alas, the movie doesn't have time. Kingo is pretty funny, and like many of the others, I like that his powers are specific with a built-in downside. He can make a super big blast, but he has to charge up, which leaves him more vulnerable. That's more rules to a power system than the entirety of Multiverse of Madness. Unfortunately, that's about all that I can say good about him. As a third character who's obsessed with Ikaris, we are once again left wondering why. Is it because the fact that he's the most powerful makes him like a big brother? If so, you have to actually show us that. I mean, people always talk about how Kumail Nanjiani bulked up only to be comedic relief, but it is so much worse. They had him bulk up just to be the sycophant sidekick to a weirdo with no personality. He literally calls him boss. And they introduce this fact like right before the finale of the movie. But this isn't even the worst part of Kingo's character. No. Let's talk about how they make him the only Eternal with a human sidekick who comes along for the journey and still make him the one who doesn't care that all the humans died. I mean, Kingo literally has a human following him around doing everything for him. A personal servant. And at the end of the movie, Kingo basically says, "Your life and all you've done for me mean nothing to me." And it's basically just presented without comment. And Karun is a character that has so much heart in this movie. It's not like he's someone you can easily cast aside. I mean, wouldn't it have been cool if Kingo realized throughout the movie that he treats Karun how Ikaris treated him, and he learns to respect humans? Or, in Kingo's quest to become like Ikaris, he goes too far, and they commit to him going dark and deciding that he doesn't care about Karun or humans. Either would be a great place to take the Ikaris ass-licking plotline. Instead, we get this wishy-washiness, where the movie commits to neither, and we're left with a character who's just kind of a dick. And that's it. He's funny, and he's kind of a dick. Not like a total dick to the point where that's his thing, but just like kind of a dick. And somehow, Karun gets disrespected by Disney more than he does Kingo. For the first half of the movie, Karun is a really cool character. Not only is he funny, but he's the stand-in for humanity in the movie. And he represents us so well. He's set up as a moral compass for Kingo, someone who reminds him of what matters. It's a strong statement because he is what they're fighting for. When Kingo realizes that the world is going to end, he tells Karun to go home. And Karun insists that he's going to stay because it's the most important thing that he could be doing right now.
And do what? Watch TV?
He stands up to Druig, saying that we must try to do better, when Druig implies that humanity doesn't deserve to live. And when Gilgamesh dies, he holds the funeral, as the resident human who has had to deal with death before. I mean, this guy literally convinced Kingo to help out in the first place. If I could gush over the captain's orders scene again, there's nothing I love more in superhero stories than when the hero inspires everyday people to stand up for what's right, even if they can't do much to help. Karun stays because maybe at some point the difference between life and death for everyone on Earth could come down to one extra human who was able to pull a lever at the right time or give a pep talk when it mattered. It harkens back to little old Steve Rogers, standing up to bullies and jumping on grenades. And then they do the unthinkable. They spit in the faces of every single human on this planet. This man, this funny-looking yet surprisingly wise and passionate old man who has spent the entire movie reminding us why humanity deserves to be fought for, decides that actually humanity isn't all that important and that it's time to go home. Why? Because Kingo did. And let's be clear, Kingo didn't even demand he leave. In fact, it doesn't look like Kingo really cares either way. And he still just leaves because Kingo does. I mean, what a message for this movie. Yeah, when the chips are down, we humans don't actually stand up for ourselves, and we're totally willing to accept the fiery demise of every single being on this planet because we follow the boss, and boss said he's leaving. They couldn't find anything for Karun to do in the finale. I mean, he's been recording things the whole movie, and they set up that Sersi's good at using an iPhone. Why not have him finish his documentary by broadcasting the Eternals message live to the entire world, giving the group the strength to carry on? I mean, what a total loser. He gets turned from a man who happens to be funny but has an adorable sense of dignity into a complete laughingstock. Phastos is pretty underwhelming. I like that he had a secret weapon to fight Ikaris, saying that he'd seen this coming and had been preparing for it in case it happened. That's fun character work. Everything else, His justification for why he stops helping humans is weird. Some humans nuked some other humans, therefore humans aren't worth helping. Hello, the innocent children who got nuked were just as much humans as the ones who did it. How many people is he letting die because he won't give humans life-saving medical technology because checks notes some of them might use it to do bad things? Also, why is he allowed to give them technology anyway? They're not allowed to stop genocide, but they are allowed to invent the plow? Or how about when Phastos explains that he has a husband and a son and that those are the only two things that matter to him in the world, which he then uses to justify why he won't stop the world from imploding in a fiery apocalypse? What, does he think Arisham will spare them? In general, I like that he has a family and that's why he ends up fighting so hard for Earth, and they have some good scenes together, but Phastos overall is very meh. Speaking of meh, they took the coolest character and did absolutely nothing with her. The way that Lauren Ridloff is able to portray so much without speaking a word is incredible, and the beauty of sign language feels very appropriate for these ancient, mysterious beings. It's extremely well realized, and it adds a lot to Makkari's disposition and personality. I loved every time she showed up on screen, and that's not just because I totally have a crush on her. Her visuals are easily the coolest, and the fact that her powers are the reason for her deafness is a great piece of world building. Or, I guess, it would be if the movie actually said or implied that. The problem, again, is that the movie has no time to do anything with her. She's mischievous, a bit of a kleptomaniac, has a good heart, and is randomly in love with Druig. That's basically all we ever get. Makkari doesn't grow or change much. She's not really doing anything interesting or valuable with her time except hoarding artifacts for no other reason than she likes them. In 500 years of boredom, she doesn't even take 15 seconds to run across the world and visit the guy she's supposedly in love with for seemingly no reason at all. I mean, I can't even talk bad about her character arc because there's really nothing to talk about. She's just here so they can have a deaf character and hopefully win internet points. And as awesome as her performance and that premise is, that's just not enough. Gilgamesh is a gentle giant who has the strongest punch in the world and also makes food with a cute apron. How could you not love him? But again, the movie has no time to explore him. So he loves Thena so much that he's willing to live out his years with her in the middle of nowhere. Okay, but, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, why? Can we give any character in this movie that's obsessed with another character even one reason in this entire film? I mean, what even is the nature of their relationship? It doesn't feel very romantic, but the fact that it is so noticeably unexplained means there's really no other assumption other than the fact that he's in love with her, which makes him such a loser. He's basically just Smithers. But even Smithers, as well as others like Harley Quinn and Haku, are able to explore the concept of undying devotion in an interesting way. Here, he's just a lovesick puppy, and the movie has no time to give us any more explanation than that. And then he dies. And his funeral is a perfect example of what's wrong with this movie. Because we never get the chance to explore the specifics of his love, why he made the choice he made, or what he stood for, the scene that brings the Eternals together is exactly the scene where I paused and checked Twitter. Gilgamesh's death means nothing to me. I would have thought they would at least have something specific that he represents that changes them going forward, but no. In fact, the dialogue immediately following the scene where he dies has nothing to do with him. I mean, literally, the plot moves forward without even attempting to make any meaning of it whatsoever. I like Dane. He doesn't get much to do in this movie, but he does well enough with the time that he has. The movie, again, doesn't really establish why he loves Sersi so much, but here it's less offensive because he gets so little screen time anyway, and she is a beautiful, all-powerful goddess, so whatever. Dane works for me because he embodies what Karun didn't. The scenes that he's in, he's always looking for a way to help, even though he's way out of his league. It's charming to see his insecurity when placed next to the all-powerful Ikaris, and it's a nice touch that he finally goes to get Excalibur because he's sick of not being able to help Sersi. I think if this were any other movie, I would be upset at how little this all was explored, but it's explored about as much as everyone else, and he gets like a third of the screen time.